Hey everyone, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Tamoor.
And we are here in Cologne, Germany, where we have just seen a pretty beefy amount of Alan Wake 2 in a behind closed doors demo. We're going to talk about everything we've seen.
We saw 45 minutes. A lot. So obviously, Alan Wake 2 new trailer was at Opening Night Live, and it showed off a little more of the Dark Place, and that is what our demo was primarily of. We actually got to see around 40 minutes of pure Alan Wake gameplay, which is something they haven't showed. It's very narratively dense in terms of the implications, and I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is the way they mentioned it. They were like, Alan Wake was a writer in the previous game. Didn't really play much into anything you were doing. It was kind of like color for him. Whereas in this game, being a writer is a core mechanic for Alan in the Dark Place.
Which is obviously this kind of twisted version of New York. He's walking around, you can see echoes of different events with, you know, characters like Saga, with Alex Casey, and then they give Alan inspiration, which then means he can go to his writer's room. So Saga has her kind of like mind palace, where she can take a look at the case file and figure out the story that way. Alan basically has his writer's room, and then he basically has a big board where he has different places that he's encountered, but then these echoes give him inspiration, story inspiration, and then he can swap these ideas in and out, and then you go back to the actual level itself, and it's just swapped in.
And what you're effectively trying to do is Alan is trying to write his way out of the Dark Place, because he's, you know, everything he's doing is kind of manifesting. And it'll be like, oh, you go up to a tunnel and the tunnel's blocked, and then you look at what kind of inspirations you have, and you might be able to work in something that, you know, unblocks the tunnel. So it's like there is only one way to kind of progress in these puzzles. There's usually one idea or inspiration element that will get you to the next step of the kind of story, but they did say you can find multiple and use them. They won't help you progress, but they might give you some interesting story or another perspective. So it's not as linear as it might sound. The other major thing that was kind of similar is he now has the ability to kind of capture light and take it with him to using a device called the Angel lamp.
I thought he was carrying around a golden globe.
It does
looks like an award.
It does look like a very ornate thing for that world. It feels like it's pulled out of a fantasy world.
And seeing just how the levels were changing with this light mechanic, and also with the writer's room stuff, it was really cool. We were watching it on PC. The build was a couple weeks old, but yeah, obviously they also announced all of the big integrations with the NVIDIA stuff. It looked really impressive.
And the actual tech behind it, they said like they rebuilt their technology to make it work, and it is like an instantaneous switch where like the moment you hit it on a frame, it just like swaps all the assets out, and it looks very, very impressive. And it kind of feeds into that kind of weirdness that is happening in the Dark Place around Alan. There's also moments where like Alex Casey appears, who is played by Sam Lake and
James McCaffrey.
And James McCaffrey, and weird things are happening. Like Alan is also confused by this. And this is the place where they also work in the live action stuff.
So
they do have more live action stuff. It feels more seamlessly integrated than in any previous games.
I think, I mean, the stuff that they did within like Control, where you would see Jesse Faden or whoever's like kind of big shadow behind, you know, there's a lot more of that, especially when it comes to the echoes. It definitely feels like a Remedy connected universe game, because they're so clear to say, bless them, it's like, you don't need to have played the other ones, any of the other games, to get Alan Wake 2. However, as people who've played them all, there are so many references.
There's one particular thing that we won't spoil, but we're like, it's that
I wouldn't be surprised if there are more faces, let's just say, from across other games that will make an appearance in Alan Wake. I will say as well that just like, in terms of gameplay, if you compare it to Alan Wake 1, where you are constantly running from under a lamp to another place, fighting a bunch of guys who look the same, flashing your torch at them and then popping them in the head, those moments were way more few and far between. It was a lot more about getting to the bottom of why Alan's in the Dark Place, how he can get out of the Dark Place, you know, messing around in the writer's room, but also it just helped to build that tension. So when you did interact with anyone, it was a lot more tense. I'm going to say this right now, this is going to reignite the environmental storytelling discourse like no other. I think it's really cool, because a lot of the stuff I kind of wish that, you know, it was just me playing so I could look at everything. every single sign, for example, had something interesting in it.
And like a lot of graffiti of scratch. And
yeah.
the main thing that
and about Alice.
I think they took from Control is the weird stuff. Like there was a lot of the kind of like the objects of power, that kind of stuff. The weird stuff that was attached to that feels like it's got a more of a home in the dark place in Alan Wake. It also kind of reminds me, going back Remedy a while back, to the kind of like sequences, the dream sequences or the horror sequences from Max Payne 1 and 2. So it does have that energy to it. So it feels like they've got a really like multi-tonal game here, and everything, the way they constantly be saying this is our first survival horror game. I think after seeing 40 minutes of Alan Wake pure gameplay, it definitely feels like a survival horror game. This is the part of it that you're like, oh, this is straight up survival horror. There's like resource like scarcity, and you want to pick your moments on when you want to fight and run from enemies. And it is, I think, like, it's still early. Oh, it's out soon, but like, it's, for us, we're in a preview stage, but it's looking very promising. Yeah,
it feels very strange to say, having just seen such a huge chunk of the game. Like in 40 minutes in a preview session is a lot of the game. I have more questions than I have answers to. Yeah. And that makes me really excited.
We'll find out in October.
Yeah.
The answers to those questions.
Yeah. For more on Alan Wake 2, make sure to stay tuned to GameSpot and of course all of our coverage from this year's beautiful Gamescom.